because
All right,
that's the big meat on the bone today. That's the big story. So Eric Armstead on his podcast, which I think he does with the Title League. Shout out to Keegan. I think we've all communicated with him at different points. Really nice guy. That's the podcast Eric Armstead does. He mentioned that he felt disrespected by the 49ers offer. Jesse, I'm going to start it with you. What did you think of Armstead's comments? Is this a big deal? Is this representative of just what is business in the NFL, or is it representative of maybe the 49ers did dirty or did something dirty by one of their longest tenured franchise players, their perennial Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate? What do you think?
Yeah, I go back and forth on this. Ultimately, I do think that it's a business play. You know, the 49ers have got to do what they got to do to try to win. Eric Armstead has to do what he has to do to try to get paid and continue to make the most money he can in this short window that you call an NFL career. So that's what it comes down to. But man, when you really look at it, $6 million is ultimately what they asked him to get paid, with up to $2 million in incentives. And you go look at the guys that are getting paid $6 million at that position. It's guys that you've never heard of for the most part. That's not a lot of money for that position. Think about it like this. The best player in the world at defensive tackle, Chris Jones, just got paid what, 32 a year? Was it 32 a year? 32 a year. They asked Eric Armstead to make $6 million. 26 minutes. Now, listen, I understand that there's a gap in talent there, but the gap in talent is not 32-6. Eric Armstead is still a very good player. He's still very productive. And ultimately, to me, I still can't get over the fact that they basically said, hey, you're going to cost us X amount to get rid of you. That difference was not a lot of money if you would have stayed on the roster. The fact that they only offered him $6 million tells me that they didn't want him to be here for whatever reason. They were ready to move on from Eric Armstead. They gave him something that they knew he would probably be offended by, knowing he would say no, and they could say, hey, then go test the market and do your thing. Now, good for him. He tested the market. He got paid good money, got one last payday in. But ultimately, this is a business. It's a shrewd business. Eric Armstead has a beef, but the 49ers feel like it was the right move. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I can empathize with Eric, but I also understand what the 49ers were doing.
Crew, what do you think?
I think the message was clear. You know, they thought his body had broken down and they didn't want to invest anymore. And I mean, there's no logical way. I mean, you gave him a third of what he was making, basically. You offered him a third of what he was making. You knew he would turn it down. You got the result you wanted. Shanahan, when he was talking in Orlando earlier this week, when Malik Collins' name came up, it was like the fourth word out of his mouth was healthy. You know, they feel like Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins are going to be healthier than Eric. You know, they paid Eric roughly 17 to 20 million a year for a few years, and he missed a bunch of games. The guy had 13 sacks in 4 years. He's got the kinds of injuries that are chronic injuries. You know, like, is he not going to have plantar fasciitis next year? No, he is. So the 49ers, I mean, and the thing that's the most, I guess, galling is that, you know, the Niners, I'm sure, would say, hey, you know, there was a health injury situation, but they offered Yetur Gross-Matos more money, and he missed the same number of games. So is Yetur Gross-Matos worth more than Eric Armstead? I think it was pretty clear that they wanted to move Armstead to move on. He was which is surprising because he's the longest tenured Niner. He is, you know, their Walter Payton Man of the Year, works in the community guy. Very surprised. I understand why he's insulted. I get it. But this is like the reality of like hard business in the NFL. You got to go with whoever you think is healthier. And they felt that Collins and Elliott were going to be a healthier play going forward and cheaper. And then they're also staring at having to pay Purdy, you know, 25 to 50 in that range, probably next year. And said, let's try to get fiscally right this year and trim our budget as much as we can without losing anything. So I understand why Eric's upset. I'd be upset too. But it was pretty clear they spoke. It's like, some teams like to say, hey, we made him an offer. We offered him a chance to return. Yeah, no, you didn't. You offered an amount of money you knew would insult him, and you knew that he would easily reject, and he easily rejected it, and he's somewhere else. So, but all of this was the Niners doing. They knew exactly how he was going to react, and he did. And now they've moved on from him.
Yeah, I think you guys covered it perfectly. I agree that it felt like once they offered that, they weren't fully interested in re-signing him. I think they offered it out of like, hey, this is what we're planning to pay the position. Because if you look at what Malik Collins got, it's very similar to what they were trying to get Eric Armstead to restructure into, or what a Collins contract is for the next year. And so I think that they gave him the opportunity from that standpoint. Eric Armstead has been a very good player. He's been a very good player for a long time. I totally understand why he would feel some type of way. I mean, just imagine you put yourself in this position, right? You're a long tenured employee at a franchise, and look at it from Eric's perspective. He was drafted in the first round. The regime that drafted him got fired immediately, right? He was drafted by Jim Tomsula, and Eric Mangini was his defensive coordinator. They got fired. Then that was a 3-4 scheme where he was asked to play 5 technique and 2 gap. Then he's asked to 2 gap for Jim O'Neill in the worst run defense scheme of all time, which he wasn't comfortable doing. Then, third regime change of his career, first round pick, 2 years down the drain. Now he's got the third regime change of his career. Now they have a scheme change. They're a 1-gap front, 4-down front. Eric Armstead cuts 20 pounds to play Leo in 2017 because the 49ers didn't have anybody else to play that position. Then he puts the 20 pounds back on in 2018 and plays as their big end. Then he plays as their big end and kicks inside. Then he ultimately gets his contract. Then he kicks inside again. The guy has done a lot for the 49ers. He's sacrificed a lot. I understand why he was insulted by the offer. It sucks. It's painful, but that's just business. That's business in life. That's business in the NFL. It's a similar type of situation. Clearly, the 49ers had made a decision that they had to move on from, like we talked about, right? We brought up a variety of names in terms of the larger tier players on the 49ers that they could move on from. They chose Armstead. Krug, if I'm not mistaken, that's who you said you would move on from as well. That's what happened. Again, I don't think Armstead is in the wrong for feeling salty about it. I don't think anybody should be mad at Armstead for being salty about it. But I also don't think that there's any reason that he can't. I don't think that him being salty about it changes anything, because that's just business in the NFL. It's cold-blooded, and that's life.
Yeah.
I mean, well said.
Is. Yeah.
I
just want to say this real quick, because a lot of people, I'm seeing the chat, I'm trying to keep the pulse of the chat. And, one of the things was like, well, Juice took a pay cut and he plays in every game. It's like, well, Juice was asked to take a 25% pay cut. Armstead was asked to take a 65% pay cut. Like these two things are not the same. You know what I mean? And 100%. Eric Armstead, here's the thing is Eric Armstead was given an offer. He decided not to take it. The 49ers obliged him, and we're moving on. But we as fans do this weird thing where when a player's on our team, you can't talk bad about him. Don't say anything bad about him. He's a 49er. He's the best in the world. You don't know what you're talking about if you don't praise this player. But the moment they're gone, literally within seconds, it's like, bum. He sucked anyways. Get him out of here. Look at this. It was like, oh, well, where was all this for the last 3 years? I didn't see any of this in my chat. So I don't know. It's just an interesting dynamic that we as fans go through, where it's like we praise a player, we love a player when he's wearing red and gold, and then the moment he makes a decision that's best for him, it's like, trash, get him out of here. I don't know. I don't understand it personally.
I kind of get it. It's human nature, right? Like, we root for the 49ers and we cheer for the 49ers. It's natural for us to all root for the good guys. So we think of the 49ers as the good guys in this entire story arc of our fandom, right? They're the good guys in this fandom. Well, think about it from our perspective, right? Jesse, you and I both work corporate jobs. In our corporation, if there was a respected, long tenure employee who survived long turmoil within the corporation and was one of the key pieces in ensuring the corporation made it to the top, he was a guy everybody around us respected. He was the guy who, he was a good family man. He was a leader. He was all of those things in the workplace. And the company does him dirty. Of course, we're going to feel a little bit salty about the company because they did a nice guy dirty. And I think that's what happens, right? You don't want to feel salty about the 49ers. So why would you say, well, they might have done something to Eric Armstead that's icky? Now, it's not wrong. I think people look at it and say what they did. Now I'm going to say what they're doing to the 49ers is wrong. What the 49ers did was wrong, which is not what I'm saying. What they did to Eric Armstead is completely valid. It's fine. It's a little bit icky, but that's business. And people don't want to feel that ick when it comes to the 49ers and towards Armstead. So how do you justify them doing this to Armstead? Well, he sucked anyway. He's only worth $6 million anyway. Why would you pay him anything else? And that's natural. That's human nature. I justify plenty of things in my life with a similar way. I certainly won't poo-poo anybody who has a similar reaction, though it's a little bit annoying because I think Armstead does deserve better from us as a fan base, especially given how hard we were on him so early in his career for things that were beyond his control, the way he turned it around, the kind of man he was for the 49ers, the kind of football player he was for the 49ers. I think he does deserve better, and I think ultimately he's in a better place, and the 49ers are also okay without him. That's my ultimate takeaway. Krug, you've been nodding your head. You got anything to add?
Well, I mean, just from being in the room, I mean, this was a major leader in their room. I mean, we can say any bad things we want about him. He was their best defensive tackle against the run. They were noticeably worse when he wasn't on the field. Hopefully the guys they got will be as good or better. They'll be cheaper as a tandem, but can they be better? But they lost a real dude. I mean, they lost a real leader in that room. I just from walking in there every day, it's like this guy was held in very, very high regard by the rest of his defensive line mates, by the rest of the guys on the team. So they lose a major leader, and we'll see how it goes. They're younger, they're cheaper. It was the right move for them, but we'll see what their defense looks like and how galvanized and together they are. Because Eric was a big leader in that room for sure. No doubt, no question about it.